Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Good morning, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable ministers and honorable leader of the opposition, honorable assistant ministers and members of parliament. I also bid a very good morning to our visitors to the House this morning, students, and our honorable member visitor from Vanuatu, all you ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your interest in the proceedings of Parliament of Fiji. And all those who are tuning in to the live broadcast of today's proceedings, those listening to the radio, Shambul Vinaka, namaste and a very good morning to you all. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to deliver my ministerial statement elaborating on Fiji's bilateral relationships with New Zealand in our Duavata Partnership Agreement. So New Zealand is one of our oldest partners and friends in the region. It is one of the first countries that Fiji established diplomatic relationships with upon independence in 1970. We share more than just our geographic location. We share a rich, historic, political, cultural, and people-to-people links that inform us, inform our relationship on all fronts. Even as a colony, we stood together in times of crises, as we did with our other allies. Our service personnel stood together in the Pacific War during World War II, in the Solomons and in Bougainville, and later on in Malaya. And in recent times, Mr. Speaker, sir, in peacekeeping missions in Lebanon, Sinai, the South Pacific peacekeeping forces in Bougainville, Timor-Leste, and again in the Solomons, under the Regional Assistance Mission Solomon Islands, or RAMSI. Outside the military front, we stand together in times of natural disasters and at the humanitarian emergency front. The relationship between Fiji and New Zealand assumed a new frame with the signing of the Duavata Partnership Agreement in 2022. So under the Duavata Partnership, Fiji and New Zealand collaborate on the following areas: on economic resilience, on security, on social well-being, and on climate change and resilience. The Duavata Partnership covers the period 2022 to 2025. And we are now looking at review of the agreement to identify opportunities for further collaboration in the key sectors. On the invitation of the then Prime Minister in New Zealand, Honorable Christopher Hipkins, I undertook an official visit to New Zealand from the 5th to the 8th of June last year, 2023. It was the first official visit of a Fijian Prime Minister to New Zealand in 16 years, and my first official visit after 25 years since I last visited as Prime Minister in 1998. So the visit involved a number of high-level engagements with key government and non-government stakeholders. I met with the then Prime Minister Hipkins, and we discussed a range of issues, including the growing geostrategic interest in the region, Pacific regionalism, the importance of building longer-term capabilities so that Fiji and Pacific Island countries are self-resilient, self-reliant, and how New Zealand can help us in that journey. Mr. Speaker, sir, New Zealand and Fiji, alongside other Pacific Island forum leaders, share an ambitious vision for the social, cultural, economic, and environmental resilience of the region, where we are strong, prosperous, and secure. We are stronger when we combine our efforts and focus on Pacific regionalism and the priorities of the Blue Pacific continent. Mr. Speaker, sir, we share a strong focus on regionalism, including upholding Pacific Islands Forum unity, support for the University of the South Pacific, and working with other traditional partners such as Australia on defense and security measures. We also discussed our long history of close supporting, cultural and people-to-people links, and the work that we are doing in the spirit of our Duavata Partnership Agreement. Mr. Speaker, sir, Fiji and New Zealand are connected by the depth of our cooperation across a broad range of sectors, including policing, health, trade and industry, education, and fisheries, to name just a few. I also told them, the then Prime Minister, that the People's Coalition government is serious about growing our economy and that we are keen to work harder to boost Fiji's export capacity to New Zealand. The then Prime Minister also expressed gratitude for the deployment to New Zealand of our emergency and ERMF personnel following Cyclone Gabrielle. The then Prime Minister and I also discussed the Defense Cooperation Agreement that will allow defense officials to undertake engagement in different areas, including capacity building and upskilling and exposure to new technologies, interoperability, and technical support, among other matters. The agreement will also strengthen maritime security and improve the disaster and humanitarian response coordination between our two nations. Mr. Speaker, that Defense Cooperation Agreement was signed the following week between our two defense ministers in Suva on the 14th of June, 2023. Most of the former military officers in this August House were beneficiaries of the then Defense Cooperation Program, or military assistance program within New Zealand during our times in service. On meeting with the then Foreign Minister, Honorable Nanaia Mahuta, we delved into our economic recovery after the pandemic and the challenges that climate change poses to our development aspirations. We agreed that climate change remains the single greatest threat to lives and livelihoods in the Pacific region. After that meeting, Honorable Mahuta announced the additional support of $11.1 million to assist our response to the impacts of climate change. I welcome the boost which will support the implementation of renewable energy projects, infrastructure resilience, and climate policy. At the meeting with Honorable Mahuta, I also raised the possibility of the grant of a visa on arrival for Fiji citizens. This is an issue that we will continue to raise with New Zealand government. I also had the opportunity to meet with the then Minister for Climate Change, the Honorable James Shaw. We discussed opportunities where Fiji and New Zealand can work together at the multilateral level, and in particular at the Conference of Parties negotiations, the COP negotiations. We also discussed the need for public-private sector cooperation and the importance of new technologies in moving us forward to meet our commitments under the Paris Agreement. Mr. Speaker, sir, New Zealand has been a long-term, proactive partner in supporting Fiji's ongoing efforts to manage the increasingly detrimental impacts of climate change. New Zealand has provided New Zealand $20 million in flexible climate finance, along with capacity support and technical assistance to support Fiji in delivering on our national climate change priorities. New Zealand also continues to support the National Disaster Management Office, including the pre-positioning of emergency supplies in Fiji to assist during times of disaster as and when needed. Mr. Speaker, sir, New Zealand remains one of our most important trade and investment partners, with two-way trade between New Zealand and Fiji reaching an all-time high of New Zealand $1.36 billion in 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, New Zealand has also been supporting Fiji with trade negotiations capacity support. This includes a grant of New Zealand $800,000 to support ongoing training for our trade officials. We continue to collaborate on trade issues, including for the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, IPEF, which is August House had resolved to ratify earlier this week. While in New Zealand, I also met with the Fiji New Zealand Business Council. The event was attended by up to 100 members of the Fiji New Zealand Business Council, and I record with regret that some of those very distinguished former Fiji citizens who were there at that meeting are now no longer with us. I raised with our private sector partners the importance of continuing to invest in Fiji, highlighting Fiji's positive economic growth following the COVID-19 pandemic, and to support the government's investment target of New Zealand $2 billion. I also expressed my support towards the revival of the Fiji New Zealand Business Council as an avenue to open up further opportunities of investment to Fiji. I'm happy to see the next Fiji New Zealand Business Council meeting being hosted here in Fiji in June. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also made sure to take time to visit members of the Fiji diaspora living in both Auckland and in Wellington. We were able to share with the Fijian community our national development priorities, the upward trajectory of growth and development. In particular, I conveyed to them our appreciation for their continued support through remittances received from New Zealand. As you may be aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, personal remittances to Fiji reached $1.25 billion in 2023, an increase of 20.4% over the figures of 2022. Our people abroad make valuable contributions, and I urge the diaspora community to continue to be good ambassadors of Fiji to New Zealand. I also urge them to be law-abiding contributors to the New Zealand economy. And in concluding, Mr. Speaker, sir, I take this time to thank the New Zealand government for the protocols and courtesies accorded to me during my visit. Please allow me to express my gratitude to the people and the government of New Zealand for the support and assistance we continue to receive under the Duavata Partnership. Dhanyavad, shukriya.